Hello, I'm Michael Sinclair, Senior Advisor to the Harvard Ministerial Leadership Program. Welcome to another in our series of tips for ministers. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking to Ghana's former Education and Energy Minister. As Minister of Education, the Honorable Opoku Prempeh was responsible for historic education reforms. In 2017 and 2019, he was voted by popular acclaim by the Ghanaian public as Minister of the Year for those accomplishments. Minister Prempeh, may I call you Matthew?
Very well, Matthew.
Well, welcome, Matthew, and thank you so much for talking with us. So your President Akufo-Addo in 2016, when he was running for election, made a central part of his election campaign a promise of free universal secondary education. Perhaps for those who don't quite understand the Ghanaian historical education context, you could explain why that was important.
Thank you. And actually, Sinclair didn't say that in 2020, I got honored by Harvard Ministerial Leadership Program.
Yeah,
the Minister of the Year. You didn't say that.
That too. You're one of our most distinguished alumni.
In 2016, we won basically because Ghanaians realized that probably this government or this party would do some well considering what they had done in basic education. We did that because in 2015, the then government decided to go out of every educational international assessment. They went out of PISA, they went out of TIMSS, the EGRA, EGMA, because when they did those assessments, Ghana did so poorly. But we knew from 2006, 2007 that on the issue of quality, meaning assessment outcomes, year by year, we're not doing very, very, very well. And so they decided to abandon, instead of reforming, they decided to abandon all these international assessments. So we came up and said, no, we would ensure free SHS as well as quality education, bringing in the essences of quality education that will lead to improvement in quality outcomes. So when we got into office in 2017, the President of the Republic then made a statement. That was when we formally launched the Free Senior High School. He said he made a pledge of providing every Ghanaian child with access to senior high school because he knew that knowledge and talent are not for the rich and privileged alone, and that free education widens the gates of opportunity to every child, especially those whose talents are arrested because of poverty. The data, when we won the election and I managed to be tapped into going into the Ministry of Education, the data was already there, just that we're not looking at it. What was the data? In Ghana, the northern part of the country had historically been given a supplement, a sort of partial scholarship for senior high school. And we realized that for every 100 students from the northern sector of the country that qualified, only about 11% did not go to senior high school. And the south of the country, as much as 35% could not go to senior high school, even though they qualified to go. So it meant, just looking at the data, going back 4 or 5 years before we came into office, the result was clear. About 100,000 kids a year at the age of 14, 15, who qualified and got placed into senior high school could not go to school because of finances.
But the finance issue revolved around the fact that the secondary and senior schooling system was a boarding-based school system, right? Kids went to school.
Yes, it's true. Secondary education in Ghana since independence in 1957 has always been a boarding school education.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed. Nearly 95% or 90% go into boarding schools.
Right.
So it has been boarding. And that is what brought the cost that was out of reach to, I would say, a sizable number of people that couldn't take their kids to school.
So the president is elected. You are appointed education minister, and given this enormously complicated assignment, how did you set about organizing?
Thank you. I think I was very, very privileged. I don't know which month, but I thought it was March that I was privileged to be invited to the Harvard Ministerial Leadership Program in 2017, which I did attend. And I benefited enormously in the sense that I got to meet fellow ministers in energy and in health and in education who spoke to us. We had people over the video, people came in person. And I remember very well meeting the former Minister of Education from Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
former Education Minister from Great Britain, and all gave us pep talks. Others from Southern America who came in through live videos and things like that. But so my take home was that for me, as eager and as keen as I was to perform, the Harvard Ministerial Meeting program put in better perspective the enormity of what was going to confront me and how I needed to organize myself and organize myself very, very, very well. One of the takes I got was the stakeholder mapping and consultations, knowing who the people who are going to really have power to wreck your things, people who didn't matter much, but they were there. I also got to know how you had to maintain relationships with other ministers whose work might be of benefit or bearing to you, like the finance minister, like the agricultural minister, like the health minister, like the sports minister, and also more importantly, how you manage your relationship with the president or prime minister. In our case, it was the president, in relation to a party platform position that had taken on and taken root for so long time. So I learned a great deal about it. I say that if we had any successes, the eye opener, the baptism, what prepared me most for the job was my appearance and my participation in the Harvard Ministerial Leadership Program. So when I came back, my mind was already made up on how to proceed. I knew.
So if I may, you had to manage this diverse array of stakeholders, principally in the first instance, your own ministry to start with, all the divisions throughout the country, right down to local school districts, parents, trade unions, as well as the political constituency within your government and the opposition. How did you balance all of this, and what was most difficult? Where were the hurdles?
The intra-ministerial agencies and institutions around secondary education are myriad, but there are about 3 or 4 powerful unions. Apart from the unions, there were the head teachers associations, there were the parent teacher associations, there were the school teachers associations, there were the beggars and domestic matrons, those who cooked for the kids, their association. There were religious faith-based organizations who in Ghana had some secondary schools they had built that government had taken over, who also had a huge influence. There were regional and district directors of education in those areas, the secondary schools who were part of the Ghana educational establishment. There were civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations playing different roles and responsibilities who we had to engage. There were parents, ordinary parents, who quality education outcomes mattered to, who we had to listen. And that was within the ministry and the purview of the ministry. Outside the ministry, like I said, there were other ministries, especially the Ministry of Finance, which minister indicated very, very early on that he did not agree with our free senior high school and policy. And so there was those ministers, Agric Minister who was in charge of the national buffer stock, who had to find a way of he agreeing to work with us. The health minister and the sports minister, because we had to do comprehensive health issues and sports issues with the kids. Then there was cabinet, which was a bigger platform, Ministry of Communication, who was very, very much instrumental down the line with their support on remote learning. Then the president himself. So how to find a way of engaging everybody, finding the sweet spot for everybody to understand that we think or live with this policy platform. For the president, I had a very good relationship with him well before he made me the minister. And he thought that probably I was the only guy who could do the work, carry the enormity of the work that was ahead of us.
Why did he think that? What did he see in you that made him think that this is my man?
He told me that he looked around the material that he had to appoint. He needed somebody with a drive. He needed somebody who was really true blue-blooded in the party, rooted in the party. He needed somebody with an ambition, an eye looking in the future, because the success or not would also depend, would also give a pathway for me going up, and whether in the future I could even be a possible leader of the party. He needed somebody who could own the program as well as deliver the program. So he looked around and thought that I could do that job. So he called me, apart from speaking to some elders of the party, he called me and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, our discussions, I was not planning to take you to the education ministry, but our number one problem and our number one challenge and our number one policy manifesto we have said was free education. We had campaigned on 3 general elections with it. And I want to succeed. That will be my legacy as a president. So I need to take my best brain there, my best man there, so that he sees the success of implementing that policy as also a success for him for the future." So he knew from day one that he won't give that job to anybody but myself, and that he knew that I was ambitious enough to take the project and own it and deliver it, so that it will be a win-win for him and for me. So throughout my time, I had to maintain a close link and make everything an issue of him and myself. So I make it an issue of him that if he doesn't get the finance to provide the resources, we're going to fail.
So how did you do that? Is this like, you now call up the president and say, "Your Excellency, I need to have a chat"?
No, 2 or 3 main ways. One, I need to do my work very well, data and policy papers and platforms very well, which one of the first things I did when I came back from Harvard was to put together an expert panel who was with me from day one till I left the ministry. Well chosen, who were panel experts in education and leadership to inform and advise on the party manifesto platform and how we get there. Some of them were former education ministers, some were former heads of the educational establishment, Ghana Education Service. Some of them were leaders, external leaders who had set up schools, who had been vice chancellors of universities. So I brought together different people, all who are experts, all who believed in the party platform, who were part and parcel of the party platform drafting and proposals. So what I did with them was to select and bring out the different policies that came out of our party platform and write policy briefs for cabinet and for the president. But more importantly, seek meetings, face-to-face meetings with the president and bring up the issues and inform him that I need to bring that to cabinet for a general approval so that it doesn't become a problem with the finance minister releasing funds. So this whole free senior high school.
Was the president more responsive to The data-based argument or the political argument?
The president always asks for the data. He always asks for the data. He once asked me, how many children are we pushing onto the streets unprepared? And I'll say 100,000. Say, how? How do you know? I said, okay, this is my data. What do you think? How much is it going to cost us per child per year? How much is it going to cost? What are the ingredients of that sum of money you've said? You said it's going to cost 1,100 Ghana cedis a child per year. What is the breakdown of that? He made sure that I did not move till I explained myself, and he knew that. So after discussions with him, he would say, bring it to cabinet and come and argue your case. And he was the number one supportive person around cabinet. But he made sure that cabinet quizzed and questioned myself on every single issue. In fact, in 4 years, we took together 45 or 47 different policy papers to cabinet. In fact, cabinet secretariat had to give me an award that they had never seen. It was every 2 weeks, I had a paper for cabinet to approve, sometimes 5, sometimes 6 in one cabinet. So that was the enormity of the work, but we needed the president to own it. So direct discussions, cabinet policy approvals, and next situating the whole free senior high school in the office of the president.
Yeah.
So I was just an implementer for him, but
Yeah.
it belonged to him. And so he had to make sure we got the funding to make it successful.
Yeah. Many ministers live in dread of the social media these days, and general print media in particular, and the bad headlines. You generally enjoyed, particularly during the time as Minister of Education, a good media. But there was criticism about the quality issues and the difficulty of transitioning from primary to secondary. You know, when kids were not coming out with the standard levels of learning required for secondary school and so on. The other criticism, which I'm sure is even more acute these days, is that you were educating kids for unemployment. In other words, more and more children were better educated, but they were coming out at the other end and there were no jobs. How did you manage that?
Thank you. 2, 3 ways. We have the data of international assessments and educational assessments, regional assessments, because in Ghana, we participate in a whole regional educational assessment for progression, which is the West African Examination Council that has been in place since the 50s or the 60s. So it is not what you are doing in Ghana that matters. It's what the students who are coming out, either going to the university or going to secondary school, are performing. So yes, we knew that we were racing against that time for those assessments. That was one. 2, we knew the media was, before 2017 when we came to power, there were 47 adverts against free senior high school by the party we were competing with, who was in power. So the whole population was charged with or without knowledge, but with the information that free senior high school is the thing for this government. So whereas the opposition said you couldn't do it, the government in power too, there were some noises that said it was too enormous a project that we have to do. So we, on the media, not like now, there was a vehement group who were against free SHS and anything that we will do. What I decided was that I concentrate and deliver, or spend all my time on the media and work. Could I say I would ignore the media? No. Would I spend all my time? No. My time was to deliver. So another key point I took from the Harvard ministerial program was delivery. So I had a team that was marking. I had a traffic light system that was I engaged with red, green, red, gold, green, that told me every policy plank, every promise that we had made, where I am. Red means not done it, gold means on it, and green means achieved. So I had it from day one. It was on my table. It was every time. Every day, I decided my time into manifesto promises and what I'm doing, people who are coming to see me, and letters I had to answer. My day was always around those three issues, and I had time slots specific for those things. When it's time for me to engage my manifesto commitments, which people will judge by party on, I devoted that time to it and made sure that we progressed. Whether it means bringing in people who are being in charge of various elements, we'll bring them and interrogate them. When it means having my ministerial time with people who have walked through the door with appointments or no appointments, I'll deal with that. But it has to do with answering correspondence or further directives or things I had time to do in every day. So my day was essentially from 6 a.m. in the morning, and I never got to work before 7, after 7, almost 4 years. 6 a.m. in the morning, I left work around 8 or 9 p.m., even including weekends. So that is how my time was. But delivery was such a key thing word that I instituted, thanks to the Harvard Ministerial program. With the media, I then engaged them periodically, scheduled for a full media brief where I go and sit with them, talk through what we are doing, and answer questions. Others, I would have to visit the media stations and talk about. But mostly, I seconded the media to one of my deputies that he should do the frontal everyday media issue. If there are problems, they should refer to me, but to give me the space to also deliver on the work that I was supposed to deliver. I couldn't live this 24-hour media circuit harassing and asking questions. So that's how I dealt with the media. There were people who were involved in that time. Social media was up and coming. So there were people who knew about social media and would deal with the social media, coming to me for any questions and answers that they needed. There was a whole team in charge of the Free SH Secretariat, engineers and things who were very good at counting, because the whole Free SHS, apart from providing the funds, it was our ability to count and maintain counts. It was our ability to control the number of students in a school and know the number of students in a school by name and by face. So that was for a group of people to do, and I'll supervise our chair meetings and make sure that we're on the right path. But so we did engage everybody. We over-engaged, I would say, because we had time for everybody, and especially the unions, who were the real wreckers.
Yeah. So this idea of co-responsibility for the goal and for the progress that you were making. So, Minister, the fact of the matter is that not every minister has a president as supportive as yours was of you. If you, looking back now, knowing what you know, if you were able to advise ministers currently in office or ministers about to be appointed, how to manage the relationship with their president to be able to make a meaningful transformation during their time in office, what are the 3 or 4 things that you would say are fundamental?
Thank you. One, every minister so appointed is in charge of a schedule that is important to the president. There is no ministry without importance to the presidency. Every president expects a ministry or a minister to develop his ministry or to work at his ministry or to ensure that he delivers in his ministry, so that the chain is as strongest as its weakest link, that there are no breaking parts of the chain to wreck everybody's work. So whether it's the Minister for Labor, he's so important because he deals with all the unions across the field of governance. If he's doing with the Ministry of Health, he deals with all health matters, including those affecting students and children in school. If it's to do with the Ministry of Gender, they had a huge role to play in school feeding for basic schools. So every minister was important. And that is why we congregated around cabinet. So it is for you, the minister, one, to demonstrate a handle over your ministry and play out how it is important that your ministry would contribute to the success of the government. That's what every president wants to hear. He wants to hear the minister advocating how so much important his or her ministry is to the relevance of the government in delivering for the people who elected that person. If you can't find a paragraph or two to champion, to make your case, then you have a problem. Because everybody is competing. There are 23 ministers sitting around the table. Everybody has to make his ministry relevant. It's how good you are that makes the president hear you. Because there are 23 competing. And it's how good you advocate. You are an advocate around cabinet for your ministry. Is that would attract resources to your ministry. So if you don't advocate well, the finance group will not, one, allocate funds, will not, two, even support you in external funds mobilization, the external resource mobilization. You have to make a clear case that the finance minister, every dollar spent on a child has a benefit to the GDP, probably in a certain quantum, that he understands, because he understands interest rates, inflation, depreciation, and things like that. So you have to, in education, you have to educate him and let him know that, hey, every dollar you put here, these are the benefits to the economy. So the first thing is the person who has been appointed taking mastery of his or her and the relevance of his or her ministry to the president and to society as a whole, and making a case such that his colleague ministers will know that if he fails, if they don't support him for him and he fails, it brings the whole government down. And to even more importantly, note, let the president be aware that in 4 years or 5 years, when you go back to your electorate, you have to be able to tell them that we promised this and we delivered.
Honorable Matthew Prempeh, this is a great privilege, and I'm sure we can continue to talk for much longer. And perhaps we will have the privilege of bringing you back to Harvard as part of the faculty. In the meantime, I hope that you enjoy your stint outside of government. I don't think it's going to be long, though.
I hope not, but it's been 60 years of grueling time, very, very good memories, and very, very horrible ones. It's time to take a break and relearn and go through how we need to improve so that with our next shot in government, I was privileged because of the work in education. I was selected as a running mate to my flag bearer, all because I say I cannot speak without recommending the Harvard ministerial program to any incoming minister.